Well, the issues of student safety, learning and teaching will come under the spotlight when the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education embarks on oversight visits to universities and TVET centres. The committee will also assess the state of readiness for the academic year 2023, and the committee is currently on a two-day visit to Limpopo. They start their oversight visit at the TVET and University of Limpopo in Polokwane. Well, for a little bit more on this, we're now joined by the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education, Science and Innovation, Nompendulo Mkhatshwa. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having us, Mr. Ndoro.
All right. So I know that you were at the University of Zululand just the other day. Just give us an update of what you found there, and then we'll talk about your mission in Limpopo.
Right. So we started our 2-week-long oversight period in KwaZulu-Natal, where we visited Umfolozi TVET College, the University of Zululand, UKZN, but focusing more on their science programs. Then following to eThekwini TVET College. Then on Thursday, we were at MUT, Mangosuthu University of Technology, and Durban University of Technology. Then on Friday, we were at Coastal TVET College. This week, we are doing Limpopo and Mpumalanga. Today, we were at Capricorn TVET College, followed by the CET College of Limpopo, but visiting specifically the center in Seshego. Then we went to the University of Limpopo. Tomorrow we're at Univen, University of Venda, then the Vembe TVET College. Thursday, we are in Akenhoek with the Entlanzeni TVET College and the CET College there of Mpumalanga. Then on Friday, we ended off at the University of Mpumalanga in Bombela. The main findings from UniZulu were that they were allowing walk-in applications at that point in time. They had interventions in place to ensure that students who are on NSFAS have allowances before the NSFAS allowances kick in. So those were two key features from their state of readiness. Of course, we implored on management and students to continue working together, of course, with labor, to ensure synergy amongst these key stakeholders in ensuring a successful start to the academic year 2023.
So what have you found in Limpopo so far?
So Limpopo Capricorn TVET College, visiting the campus that we visited today, of course, I think from what I saw on the department's Facebook page, there were citizens who were saying, please also look at their other campuses because not everything is okay in the other campuses as well. Of course, we only visited one campus, and on the campus that we visited, the infrastructure, the building was old. It's an old building, but it's a well-maintained building, and that for us, brought us into confidence in terms of the college's maintenance plan. There were concerns, of course, raised around how to respond to load shedding, and the college has put in place generators, but I mean that needs a departmental approach because many colleges, many universities are going to need, an intervention to deal with load shedding. But what was also more inspiring is that the college itself was, together with its students, looking at ways of using solar energy to have a more sustainable way of dealing with load shedding. The hospitality studies and the workshop there, also really great work being done there. And we also visited the mechatronics workshop. And again, we were inspired. Concerned with the student accommodation, the residences, they're not in good state at all. They need refurbishment. But that's an issue that deals with the funding for student accommodation that we know in the TVET program is limited. But also one of the concerns, I think, is the fact that we aren't able to use those budgets well. And we have implored as a committee on multiple occasions for the department to assist colleges to be able to use their infrastructure development funds budgets adequately, because we need that infrastructure in order to ensure success within the education system.
All right, so these are some of the things that you're going to find along the way. But what's on your radar in terms of concerns, especially when you look historically and some of the problem areas that have persisted over time? What areas of concern are you looking at?
So a huge conversation, of course, generally starts for us with just stakeholder relations. I think we're always concerned, also given our past, on how management and students interact, student leadership in particular. So we're always advocating for strengthened engagement, where we would basically say the VC and the president must see each other every day during this particular period. The CFO and the treasurer of the SRC must be together. The registrar and the academic officer must be together, ensuring synergies and ways of troubleshooting some of the challenges that arise during this period. We also are noting that there definitely is a need for us to expand access infrastructurally. We need to build more universities. And so those 2 universities that this government has committed to in Gauteng is something that's on the radar of the committee, of course, in the long term. But we are monitoring reports on how the department is looking at the actual implementation of these two new universities, because we clearly do need these universities. Of course, also on infrastructure, expanding colleges, expanding universities that are currently existing. So access is still a huge thing, not only from a tuition perspective, which remains a challenge, particularly for the missing middle. And there we're hoping that the ministerial task team on student funding will conclude its work and report to the committee so that we're able to look into its recommendations, and if they are viable, of course, support them. But on the one hand, we have the issue around tuition, which is an ongoing crisis, also dealing with student debt. But then we also move to the issue of the infrastructure. We move to the issue of the human resource. Under the TVET program, we need more lecturers, and for more lecturers, we need more funds. And then, of course, with the CET program, you have a similar challenge. But we also really believe in the fact that increased stakeholder engagement at this particular point in time is very vital. But also, let's see social compacting from various stakeholders in society, from private sector in particular. We need to see greater partnerships with industry for TVET colleges, for placement, for work integrated learning. We need to see private sector coming on board in terms of bursaries, particularly for postgraduate funding. That's a massive challenge. The NRF funding is not sufficient. So, and young people are literally, successfully completing their undergraduate qualifications and wanting to continue their honors, their masters, and their PhDs. So we need funding for that. And I think it's also very important for us to continuously emphasize the issue around social compacting and private sector also coming on board.
All right, so one other area, student safety. Is that on the radar? What sort of things have you been seeing?
Definitely, student safety is on the radar. I mean, just reflecting on UniZulu, they were sharing with us a security app that they have put together as management, and the SRC even endorsed the app to say they're in agreement with it. But we have also been appreciating moments where we'd see local, leadership coming and joining our oversight. Today, we were with the colleagues from the legislature in Gauteng. And yes, higher education is not of provincial competence. But I mean, if we are able to share with these colleagues some of the realities of our students in terms of how, in terms of their realities as they exist in and around the institutions which find themselves in communities, it would be important for leadership who's located in and around these institutions to see how they can support these institutions by initiating conversation with, for example, community policing forums, initiating conversation with local stations to say, how do we beef up security in and around our institutions of higher learning? I mean, it's one thing to make campus safe. You can put all the lights up on campus, you can put enough security guards on campus, but our institutions of higher learning are microcosms of society. They exist within communities. So you need to ensure that the communities in and around them also are safe. And that's where these stakeholder engagements with the community security cluster is really important. And we're really hoping that leaders, public representatives in local government and provincial government, other MPs who do not serve in the Portfolio Committee of Higher Education, will take it upon their responsibility as part of their constituency work to try and foster those relations with community security organizations and structures through stakeholder forums that we have and so on and so forth. So it really is a challenge, but we've seen across the board how certain SRCs are taking initiative. I mean, we asked a question on how you may find a situation where an institution has access to a library, 24-hour service library. And then what happens when there isn't a shuttle, for example, to take students from campus to their off-campus residence? So SRCs have said, no, we've created rosters, systems to see how we can, walk as a group and maybe use one security guard from a private company in and around that community, or even from campus. So they're trying to come up with initiatives of creating safety, but I think we need something more conducive. Another part of safety, Mr. Ndoro, and please do indicate to me when we need to stop our conversation. Yes. But we've seen how gender-based violence and femicide has also found expression in our institutions, and that's also a conversation that links to safety and security. We have encouraged universities and colleges to have, as part of their orientation at the beginning of the year. So often the orientation may be focused maybe on the academic program, but we've encouraged them to have a socially orientated orientation. And I'm sorry for using those two words so closely to one another, but having an orientation program that can sensitize young people who are entering institutions of higher learning on issues around gender inclusivity, gender identities, and just general respect, that a young adult should encompass as they get into a space where maybe your mom is not there to check up on you all the time. This watchdog that's there all the time is no longer there. And now you're literally relying on your conscience. But we need to also aid that by having these programs. And we're really encouraging for an entity of the department called Higher Health to assist in this regard. I mean, UniZulu has a program of that sort that they're trying to put in place, but we'd like to see it being replicated across the board. There are some pockets of institutions that are trying to do that, but we need young people to be orientated in terms of gender inclusivity and those type of dynamics that they will find to be realities as they go into this space of being a young adult.
All right. Well, we're going to have to leave it there, but thanks very much indeed for giving us a catch-up. Perhaps we can have another conversation when you've done your tour in its totality. But for this evening, Ms. Nompendulo Mkhatshwa, thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ndoro. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you. Good night. All right, that's former student leader of Wits University and hashtag Fees Must Fall activist, now the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education, Science and Innovation, talking to us about the oversight visits they're taking to institutions of higher learning to assess their state of readiness, another issue.